All right, good morning, everybody, on this beautiful but cool Thursday morning here in the Rocky Mountains, or near the Rocky Mountains, since I'm not kind of in flat land here in Denver right now. I am so pleased to have joining the show Tom Fitton. Tom, you've seen him all over the place on television. He's all over the place on social media as well, and not just tweeting stuff, but you see him on videos all the time. Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch, and a guy who is really having an outsized impact, both personally and through his organization, on the political conversation in the United States of America today. Hey, Tom, it's great to have you back on the show. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the good word.
There was recently some very big news regarding the FBI and 2 of the 4 FISA warrants against Carter Page. And I didn't talk about him a lot on the show yet. So first, I'm hoping you can tell my listeners a little bit what that was about. And then what are you learning at Judicial Watch that it is advancing the story beyond there? And what's your level of trust in the FBI right now?
Well, last week it was reported, it actually happened in December, but the court issued an order, the FISA court, that the Justice Department informed the court that 2 of the spy warrants targeting Carter Page, of course they were really about Donald Trump, were denounced. They were disavowed by the Justice Department. They said they didn't have a predicate to do the spying, and so now there are 2 of the 4 warrants have been disavowed. The other 2, the Justice Department has taken no position on. Presumably, they're going to disavow them as well. And it just is more evidence that crimes took place in the spying targeting Carter Page. And again, it wasn't about Carter Page. It was about getting at Trump.
What makes you believe that they may disavow the first 2 warrants as well?
There's no technical difference in terms of the misinformation that was relied upon and the lies that took place to get the warrant applications from the court. So remember, it was all based on this dossier, which they knew or certainly should have known was suspect, and they didn't tell the court any of that.
A lot of time, frequently these days, as I see either some of the work you're doing or a couple other groups that are attempting to get information from the federal government, it seems like DOJ and other departments as well continue to stonewall on things that you would expect that a Trump administration department would want to be transparent about. And I think I understand it, but I'd like you to explain it because I'm sure you understand it better than I do.
Well, you explained it well. The fact is that we go to court oftentimes to get documents under the Freedom of Information Act, and it really leads to significant revelations. For instance, we would know about the Clinton emails, but for Judicial Watch's FOIA litigation, Freedom of Information Act litigation. And but as the Trump administration came in, we expected a change in approach in terms of getting information out in a timely way. Instead, we still have to sue, and they oppose us, and they more specifically are opposing us in stonewalling and stalling the release of documents on the spying, on the Russiagate smears targeting Trump, and the kind of the general, what I call it, coup and effort to overthrow the president.
But what my question to you is, why do you think that stonewalling continues in an administration where you think the highest levels of the administration would benefit, at least politically, from transparency? Is this get into what a lot of people kind of describe as the deep state, or maybe more generously, just sort of institutions trying to protect themselves at all costs?
Well, there are a million reasons for it. The appointees come in and they don't consider transparency to be important, so they don't focus on it. And so when the bureaucrats say we can't do it, or you shouldn't release these documents, or just we shouldn't spend too much time doing it, they just take it at face value. And government accountability and transparency ought to be a priority. And so we can blame it on the deep state, and I think that's part of the issue. But the other part of the issue is the top state, the appointees who just aren't terribly interested in getting this material out. For instance, the State Department is sitting on a mother load of documents that frankly, if they had been released, I suspect could have significantly undermined the efforts to overthrow the head of our government. But we're still waiting.
And again, I struggle with this so much. So I agree with that. And I still wonder, why doesn't or why can't Mike Pompeo just say, release this stuff?
I wonder that too.
Okay. And you're the guy who has to do this for a living every day.
I mean, we're in court, fighting the State Department and the Justice Department. Just a few weeks ago, they sent 6 lawyers to try to shut down our case on Clinton's emails. They're still defending her email misconduct. Unbelievable.
In fact, let's stick with that topic for a second, because I think it was somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks ago, you guys put out a story about new Clinton emails. Wasn't an enormous number of emails, but the fact that it's more than 0 still. You guys announced or released 37 pages of new Clinton emails that you said were recently found by the FBI. What the heck is going on here?
No, they won't tell us what's going on. The court asked what was going on. Where did you find these emails, and wanted more information? The Justice Department didn't have any explanation. So the FBI is, quote, finding new Clinton emails long after they told us they produced everything the court had already found. So where did they find these new Clinton emails? What's going on, including classified information? So, we have more evidence of crimes by Hillary Clinton, classified information put on the private system, and the Justice Department still hasn't gathered, evidently, all the evidence it should have had as it considered whether to prosecute her. And frankly, they should still be looking at that issue. But that's another failure by the Justice Department in terms of rule of law.
You've been doing this kind of work for a while. I want to ask you a question that sort of borders on a personal question. I'll take away the names Trump and Clinton and Mueller and Carter Page. Just take all the names away for a second. As a guy who runs an organization that is focused on what I will loosely describe as good government, how does all this make you feel about our government, about the United States of America, about where we are right now, aside from any partisanship or who's president today?
Well, I think I'm urgent. People ask me why it is I get as excited as I do about this work, because there's urgency. This is our republic at stake. The current crisis is they're trying to remove a president based on nothing. So that just negates our votes, both in the past and presumably in the future, or it would if it's allowed to stand. And we have a right to govern ourselves, and the left and the deep state and the administrative state and many in the media don't believe that to be the case. And that's why they're trying to undermine President Trump and victimizing him and throwing out the rule of law in terms of going after him, taking actual criminal acts to try to undermine him. Terrible situation for the Republic. I mean, is it Civil War type situation in the Republic? Of course not. But, we don't want our government, we don't want to lose the ability to govern ourselves by having the bureaucrats decide who's the president, and they don't have to follow the rules in deciding that. That's called sedition.
My very special guest is Tom Fitton. He's the president of Judicial Watch. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fitton, and you can follow at Judicial Watch as well. Let me stick with this line of questioning for a second, if I could, Tom. Do you feel that, based on your many years of experience in this kind of work, do you feel that the federal government is less trustworthy than it used to be, or that the American public, and even you personally, are becoming more aware of how untrustworthy it more or less always was?
Well, I think under the Trump administration, the degree that the Justice Department had any credibility, the FBI had any credibility, it's all evaporated. In terms of political investigations or investigations that touch on politicians or people close to politicians, I don't think you can trust much anything their agencies are doing. They were spying on a presidential candidate. Who knows who else they were spying on? And now it's it's confirmed that if you're part of a protected class here in Washington, D.C., you won't be prosecuted for committing crimes. So that's kind of a more recent development. That's disturbing. Others would say, well, that's been the case for a long time, and they may be correct in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think of J. Edgar Hoover, right?
One more time.
J. Edgar Hoover. This kind of thing's been going on for a while, but I don't know if it's...
J. Edgar Hoover was a petty thief compared to the leadership of the FBI under Barack Obama, and that was finally changed by Trump. I mean, Hoover just investigating people and keeping files on people, and kind of using it in a gossipy way with presidents. Come on, that doesn't compare to using a half a dozen agencies to spy on your political opponent, including in overseas operations. My gosh, there's nothing to compare with it in American history.
So that's your answer to my question, in the sense that you think that much of the federal government is less trustworthy now than a generation ago, and it's not just that we're waking up to it, right? And my bad analogy, right? Is there more autism now, or just more diagnosis of autism now? And that's, that's the kind of thing.
It's worsened. I think during the Obama administration, the issues that have been out there in terms of government misconduct metastasized.
What are you at Judicial Watch working on right now? What kind of documents are you seeking regarding the Bidens and all this Burisma stuff and what you've called the Biden scandal?
Well, we've asked for the documents that you might think we want to know, which would reflect on what Joe Biden was doing with the prosecutor that was fired, Mr. Shokin, the Ukraine prosecutor that on tape he admitted to trying to get, or successfully to get fired in exchange under threat of his withholding $1 billion in loan guarantees. So we're asking about that. We're asking about the whistleblower, what his emails were, because we don't believe he's really a whistleblower. And plus, the person who's alleged to be the whistleblower was actually a key Ukraine expert detailed by the CIA to the White House in both the Obama and Trump administration. So he's a key witness no matter what. That's the sort of basic work that everyone's talking. We're all talking about that this week because of the impeachment coup. We're actually in federal court suing for the information.
Wow. All right, let me play devil's advocate for a second. Why does anything about the whistleblower matter, given that what he said turned out to be accurate? I mean, people can dispute the meaning of what President Trump did, the significance of it and all that, but what he said President Trump did seems, and it was true. So why does anything about that guy matter?
No, on key issues related to the call, it wasn't true. He misstated what happened on the call, and he misstated generally what was at issue. So that's not true. And then secondly, how did he get access to that call, which was classified? And did he share it improperly? That's something else that's important. And if it is the person we believe it is, he may have been involved in the scandals that we're talking about. Was he involved in the Burisma scandal with Biden? Did he work with Biden? What did he know and when?
One of the interesting bits of testimony.
Ross, go back. This is the man who launched an effort, was at the center of the effort, wouldn't be here right now seeking to remove the president of the United States without certain actions by this person, and we're not allowed to know who it is. It's crazy.
I don't know. I struggle with this a lot, Tom.
The left is protecting the CIA of all.
I get that. But I also believe in whistleblower protections, broadly speaking, and I'd have to be a lot more convinced than I am right now that there's any useful information to be gathered by naming the guy, because I think that what he said was basically accurate. And I just...
Ross, I've worked with whistleblowers. We've represented whistleblowers.
Right.
He's not a whistleblower. He's not a whistleblower under the law. He's not a whistleblower morally, legally, or ethically. And the idea that a senior government official would come out and make allegations against the president of the United States, and we don't have a right as the American people to find out what this official's motivations and activities are, is absurd. He's not a file clerk in the GSA. He's a CIA official assigned to the White House. We need to know what he was up to.
I do think the question of how that guy got the information
the president's the whistleblower, Ross. That's the whistleblower. And we're seeing retaliation right now.
That's a good way to put it. You'll remember when Vindman testified, he said that he did not talk to the whistleblower, but he implied that he talked to somebody else who probably talked to the whistleblower. And I believe that part, and I would like to know who that person is. I would be very interested. I'm actually more interested to know who leaked to the whistleblower than about the whistleblower himself. And I know you don't call him a whistleblower. I get that, but you know what you get my point.
Look, my concern is that this is classified information we're talking about, who's improperly shared within the administration. You don't have access to classified information just because you have a security clearance. You have to have a reason for it.
Right.
And if it's being pushed around for improper purposes, that would be a crime. Now, do I know that took place? No, but I have suspicions it did. Certainly given the testimony of Vindman and what happened with the Schiff team and the lies associated with this handling of the whistleblower complaint, or a so-called complaint. And the DOJ should be investigating this. I mean, just look at the Bolton book. We now know it was full of classified information. Someone leaked some of it. That's a crime, potentially. DOJ needs to get on the ball here.
Got just over a minute left. I want to ask you about something completely different from the Judicial Watch website. Really interesting piece. U.S. funding of Islamist, quote-unquote, charity groups triples under Trump. And I don't know if you personally are involved with this issue at Judicial Watch, but I would love to hear a little more about it if you know about it.
Well, generally speaking, and I don't have the piece in front of me, so I'd be going on memory, so I'm hesitant about that. But there's this category of groups here in the United States, that Muslim-oriented organizations that, aren't like the, Ancient Order of Hibernians. These are groups associated with terrorists abroad and have been affiliated with real extreme activity. And it's just unbelievable that the government has anything to do with them, and yet they continue to support them. And it has accelerated, as we say, under the current administration. And there's certain, I don't know what the agencies are thinking of, but for instance, there's one group that's always in the news, the Council on Arab-Islamic Relations. I don't remember if they're in the story, but they're a prime example of a so-called Muslim civil rights organization that, in fact, according to the government, was founded by the Hamas terrorist group as a front here in the United States. And the idea that it gets any attention or any access to any government agencies in the media or, gets the time of day from anyone in government is really troubling.
I couldn't agree with you more. This Judicial Watch piece says between 2017 and 2018, the U.S. government more than tripled its funding to organizations influenced or controlled by Islamist activists. And I'm really grateful to you and Judicial Watch for bringing this story to our attention, as well as all the other great work that you do. Tom Fitton is president of Judicial Watch. Check out judicialwatch.org. Tom, thanks again for joining us on the show. Always appreciate your time.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you.